takes on what you saw during state on the girls' side?
Obviously, interesting year this year, Stu, with everything kind of mashed together, the girls and the boys tournaments. We'll probably talk about that a little later. A lot of people had thoughts on that. I know it was out of necessity this year, but you know, props to the NSAA. We got the tournaments played. I thought we had several high-level games. And, you know, starting with the Class A girls, Fremont took home their first title. Kelly Flynn guiding the Tigers to that first title. They defeated Lincoln Southwest in that final, and it was just seemed like the whole town of Fremont was out for that game. And Kelly said it was a journey, and he was probably right, that they took a step every year toward that title, that senior class that finally finished it off and got it done in that final.
It really felt like the old South Sioux City days with Kelly, and Kelly now has enough championship coaches awards he can panel the den in his new house at the lake at Fremont.
Well, 11 state titles at South Sioux City, #1 for Fremont. The only unusual thing was that it was such a low-scoring game, because when we think of Kelly Flynn's teams, we're thinking of teams that are scoring 60, 70, 80 points or more, but Fremont scored just enough to win 37-32.
It was an exciting game. I thought the Class A tourney, obviously the upset of Millard South, that Lincoln Southwest pulled in the semis, was probably one of the shockers of the girls' tourney.
Right. The only undefeated team in the state going into the tournament, Millard South, and they came up a little bit short again. That senior class, they will be a senior class next year. They've got one more year to try to get it done. I'm sure the Patriots, again, will be one of the favorites, preseason favorites next year. Bryce Myers, we'll see if they can finish off that tournament title next year.
You know, it's interesting. It's been a while since the Metro Conference team has won Class A. It's 2 previous years. It was Alexis Markowski and Lincoln Pius X, and now it's Taylor McCabe and Fremont. Can Millard South or Central or somebody retake the title for the Metro?
Well, Millard South's going to have more players back than Central, so I probably look at them. But, yeah, the Metro Conference hasn't been in that final for a few years, and it's been a little unusual, Fremont being there. And like you said, Pius the last couple of years hasn't been a surprise with Markowski, the very dominating center who's now putting up big numbers for Nebraska as a freshman. So we'll see if the Metro Conference can break through next year.
What do you see in B girls?
Well, Elkhorn North, again, 2 years in a row. They won it last year, their very first season of varsity play. They made it 2 in a row, defeated Omaha Scott in that final. They were the top 2 teams all year long in Class B. I think that was the final that everybody expected. And, you know, I think if the Skyhawks were going to have a chance in that game, they needed to get off to a really strong start. They weren't able to do that. Elkhorn North took the lead and just kind of held it the rest of the way. Can't mention Elkhorn North without talking about Britt Prince, the very highly decorated and recruited sophomore. She led the way again, and what more can you say? Elkhorn North 2 in a row, and they probably have to loom as the favorite the next 2 years until Britt Prince finally walks down that aisle and gets her diploma.
I tell you, the Britt Prince and Taylor McCabe are 2 of the most exciting players, boys or girls, in the state. I mean, they are fun to watch. Taylor's going on to Iowa. Britt, I think, is going to have her choice of upper tier NCAA contender schools by the time she's done. And
yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. When I was covering them, there wasn't a game where Ann Prince, her mom, parentheses also the coach, would tell me that some assistant or maybe a head coach from one of the big, quote-unquote, big programs, your Duke and UConn and people like that, were there to at least see her play. So it's no secret that she's one of the top players in the state, and with McCabe's graduation, she'll be the top player heading into next season.
Well, I like seeing coaches in the stands watching high school games and not just relying on what they see during the summer. I think it's so important that you see how top players blend and elevate their supporting cast, because in the summer season, these are all top level kits that you're playing with and against. How do you make your team better? And I like seeing, and I wish some sports would do more of that, seeing how they interact during a game and afterward with with their teammates, because I think that certainly foretells success on the next level.
Right. And just using those two players you mentioned as an example, McCabe and Britt Prince, they're not one-trick ponies as far as scoring. They assist, steals, defense especially. I think of both of them, that's really underrated, that Britt's got really long arms. She really disrupts things. And McCabe, they usually put her on the other team's, one of their top scorers, and she just did another great job all through the tournament. So,
well, they both go rebound. I mean, on the defensive end, they are crashing. They want to get that ball, and they want to turn and sprint up court. You know, it's not like they're basket hanging on the other end hoping to get the outlet pass. They're the ones getting the ball off the glass and taking off down court, because they are probably faster than the rest of the 8 on the court.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They're creating out there. You know, they're not just standing up by the three-point line. They're making things happen, not just for them, but for all their teammates.
Very good passers. You want to talk about the 4 lower classes at state?
Sure. Let's start with C1, and our friends at North Bend made it 3 in a row. The Emanuel sisters kind of always leading the way there. So North Bend defeated Lincoln Lutheran. Game went into overtime. I believe it was Josie Cleveringa who hit the big 3 in overtime to really help the Tigers take the lead. And like we said, North Bend 3 in a row, so very impressive. And I think a couple of those Emanuel sisters are coming back next year, so North Bend will loom as another possible favorite in C1. We'll move on to C2, and Hastings St. Cecilia had a really tough game against Bridgeport. The final there was, I think it was 40-38.
Right.
St. Cecilia. Kissinger, St. Cecilia's top player, kind of helped will them to the victory. They kind of went in as the favorite. They were the #1 seed. They were the runner-up to North Bend last year. They blew a big lead in the fourth quarter against North Bend, and I think that loss really drove St. Cecilia this year to that title. Bridgeport did have a chance to tie it late. They weren't able to do it. So
they had a bad turnover there, and I thought a key factor in that game was just the inspiration that Addie Kierkegaard provided. This senior for them went down with what looked to be a really bad knee injury, had to be helped off the court, iced up, got wrapped at halftime, came back and had 7 rebounds and helped counter the Loomis Godel sisters, Ruthie and Olivia. And I think that may have been one of the differences in a 2-point ball game.
I think that's right. I mean, she got hurt just a couple minutes into the game, so really right off the tip. And when we saw her go down, we thought, well, she's not coming back. They taped up the knee. She was able to come back in the second half. She didn't score a whole lot, Stu, but I think her presence just out there and the fact that she was gutting it out, Kissinger said after the game, just seeing her out there was a big emotional boost for St. Cecilia. So, yeah, props to her for helping that team finish off that state title.
How about D1 and D2?
Well, Humphrey Lindsay Holy Family, a team that I know something about because I was up in Humphrey doing a feature story before the tournament. And Humphrey Lindsay Holy Family got it done, 42-34 over once beaten, now twice beaten Shelton. The Bulldogs really played a nice game. I believe that's their first title since they co-opt with Holy Family.
Which Bulldogs?
That would be Humphrey Lindsay Holy Family. Yeah.
Shelton also is the Bulldogs, so it's a little tough to write, and certainly for a radio broadcaster, you can't use Bulldogs.
True. Yeah, that's always fun when they both have the same nickname. So, but anyway, props to them for finishing it off, and their boys finished it off too.
Yes.
Probably mentioned that. But moving on to D2, Sacred Heart. Falls City Sacred Heart wins by 10 over Humphrey St. Francis. Falls City Sacred Heart finished as the runner-up the previous year to Humphrey St. Francis. And Allison Widener, their very fine all-stater, who also has gone on to Nebraska. Sacred Heart kind of took the lead. St. Francis got close. Sacred Heart pulled away there at the end. So props again to the Irish for finishing off that Class D2 title.
Luke Sano coaches very well down there.